The following is an overview for Infor Visuals Shop Floor version 9.08, beginning with the display of non-scheduled operations. Next we'll move over to material issues. There are several enhancements. Document attachments have been enhanced with add and edit capabilities. There is now label printing for trace parts. Display has been enhanced with additional columns. And finally we'll end with a couple enhancements for tools and utilities. Let's start by taking a quick look at non-scheduled operations. Pressing the scheduling icon brings me to my shop view. Here you'll notice that I have assembly. I'm going to drill down further into assembly, and you can see I have 3 work orders currently underneath my assembly. Scrolling to the right, you can identify that I have finish date, operation start date, and operation finish date already set for these 3 operations. If I go over to preferences, and you notice now that there is a new selection for show non-scheduled operations in shop floor view. I'm going to turn that on, submit my new preference, and come back here to my shop view, and you'll notice now that there are 2 new operations. These 2 operations have not been scheduled. I can see the blank section here. Even though these operations have not been scheduled, I can work with them in my shop floor utility. Material issues now include a few updates. Let's begin with a couple found in the Issue by Work Order view. We'll look at Issue All as well as Return All. Going into my Work Order Material section, I'm going to scroll down to Issue by Work Order. Inside of this view, I can now go through and select a specific work order. With the top level selected, you can notice as I scroll down, I can see all the materials that belong to the top portion of this work order. Next, I can filter it even further by selecting the operation sequence, and I only see the materials that are required for that operation. Additional filtering and display options can be found underneath the Show More button. Here you can see Part ID and Resource ID can be selected or filled in, as well as now you have the Order by Part ID and descending order selections available. I will now select the Issue All button, and you notice that I do get one warning because I have auto issue materials inside of my current selection. I'm going to press through on that, and here is my option menu. Let's go through the current options. First option is to issue up to the total available balance for the part itself. The next one would be to ignore that total balance and just do the complete issue. Third would be to prompt for inventory locations. The fourth is to issue up to the primary location. The final option would be to issue from the primary location, ignoring the quantities, so it will over issue at the primary location. If you'd like to preview the transaction before saving, put this final option on. For this example, I'm going to choose Prompt with Inventory Locations, which will bring up a new dialog. In this dialog, I can go through and actually determine which quantities I want to select from each individual location. So I have only a couple locations in this example, and I'm going to take 3 from the first location and 7 from the second location. The next part in the list automatically comes up, and here's where I can decide how much to put per location. When I'm done, I do get the display based upon the setting that was in the previous dialog. Let's review the results of the Issue All transaction. You'll notice that I have 2 parts that went through the transactions. Scrolling to the right, here you'll notice the required quantity, issued quantity, and remaining quantity showing the full display. Let's take a look at the Return All feature. If we go into the window now, there's a Return Issue Materials flag. I can put that flag on, and it now makes the Issue All a Return All switch. My operation was closed on that last exercise, so I'm going to reopen it here in this step. And we have 2 options here. We can either return all to the original locations, or we can be prompted for inventory locations, similar to the example we did for Issue All. The option to preview transactions before saving is also available here. The Available Warehouse Locations dialog allows me to go in and modify where the quantities will be returned to. And it'll scroll through each part and give me the dialog at the end telling me what has been returned. After submitting the changes, I'm brought back to the main dialog where I can also review the required quantity, issued quantity, and the remaining quantity. Visual version 908 was updated with 2 auto-issue material settings. Shopfloor 908 is also enhanced for those settings. Starting in site maintenance underneath the defaults tab, I can go down to the auto issue methods. The original auto issue method was based upon operation quantities being reported complete. There are 2 new ones, one based upon full requirement quantity of the first labor ticket, and the second one based upon setting the operation to run complete. Let's review a run complete example. I have a work order set up with multiple auto issue materials as well as auto backflush settings. My example already has 2 units out of 10 completed. Going into the labor reporting section of the Shopfloor utility, I'm going to go in and do a stop job. In this case, the employee is already clocked in against the operation. Next, I will flag the operation as run complete, and I'll submit my changes. Stop the job. Going back into the work order, you'll notice that I can still see the 2 units. I'll refresh the work order, and here you'll notice since I set the operation to complete, all of my auto issue materials are being issued. Now let's go review an example with the first run labor ticket being reported and the impact on auto issue materials. For the example, I'm going to be using a similar work order without any transactions currently on it. Moving over to the Shopfloor utility, my employees are already logged into the operation. I need to go through and just do a run ticket. So I'm going to stop this first run ticket, which should be enough to display the auto issue. Let's review the work order. Going in, you can see my work order. I'll refresh. And once I refresh, you can see that the materials have been issued to the work order. And now I'm looking at the material issues window, and you can see all the transactions that took place. Add and edit capabilities have been added to document references when using the Shopfloor utility. Starting in the Shopfloor view, you'll notice that my first work order has a document attachment. Let's review the document references for this work order operation. There are 2 documents for the operation that were created over the manufacturing window. I can also use the Show All button to demonstrate that there are also work order documents attached to this one work order and display documents that may be in other operations for this work order. I'm going to go into the Add button, and I'm going to go through and select a new file. And from my default directory, I'm going to go in and select the file. I'll continue by pressing Open, and I can add attributes to this document reference, beginning with the description, and then moving down to whether to attach it to the work order or the operation. Then I can determine which types based upon that selection. Work order only has the general work order and part selection, where if I chose operation, I have operation, service, and shop resource that I could attach it to as well. I'm going to attach the document to the operation and also keep the operation type. I'll save. It'll confirm that the document has been created with the attributes I added. Now I can go back and look at the document reference. I'll take off the Show All. Here you can identify the file that I've just added and created, and I can open it from this link. I'm going to go back into my documents dialog from my work order operation. And here you can see that I have another option to go in and select existing references. I'm just going to select the first one on the top, and you'll notice that it's added automatically to my documents for that operation. Now let's go look at the enhancement for label printing. The following enhancement works with the label print setup utility found underneath the admin menu of Visual. This utility includes 2 label types that will be utilized by the Shopfloor application. First, we can look at inventory type transactions. We'll use the label type of traceable, and there's also an option to have labor trace labels produced. My example going forward will be one for labor trace. My example begins with an employee already clocked into a job. I'm going to the Stop Job application, and here's where I'll enter in a quantity, and I need to put in trace records before saving. Enter the trace and accept it. Once the trace record is created, I can now come over to the label and I'll start to generate the label or the details for the label. Enter the quantity that I'm going to print and accept it. And it isn't until I submit that all of that is committed. I'll finish the stop job at this point. Transaction was accepted. And now I'll move over to show you the record. Here's the example of the output that's created for the Loftware print label. Additional columns have been added to several views inside of the shop floor application. The following is a list of the views that have been modified for version 9.08. As a quick example, I'm going to go in from the resources view and then go down to the resource schedule view. And inside of here, I'll scroll over and you'll notice multiple columns have been added or now displaying here in my example. As I keep scrolling to the right, you're going to notice that operation and resource user-defined fields have been added. You'll also notice this with several of the other views. There are two updates for tools and utilities. Let's begin with the sign-in configuration change. Previous installations used the app settings secrets config file to hold the user ID and password. Installations will now use vmconfigforms.exe to help enforce password encryption. Our last version 9.08 enhancement will be a performance enhancement affecting the cache setting for Web API. The following optional setting will cache information based on these key elements and will help with the performance of the resource view. In the app settings secrets config file, you can see my example of where I have 60 seconds for a value set for the resource schedule cache limit. This will help with the performance when opening and viewing the resource view. Thank you for watching this video on Infor Visuals Shop Floor version 9.08.